1 Samuel chapter 18, verses 1 through 4, 19, 1 through 7, 20, 1 through 42, 2 Samuel 1, 17 to 27, 21 and 7, a forever bond. Lesson text is going to be about the depth of the friendship, standing firm in adversity, and honoring a friend's legacy. Okay, the depth of friendship. 1 Samuel 18, verses 1 through 4, 20, 16 through 17. And it came to pass, when he had made at the end of speaking unto Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. 2, and Saul took him that day, and would let him go no more home to his father's house. 3, then Jonathan and David made a covenant, because he loved him as his own soul. Verse 4, and Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was upon him, and gave it to David, and his garments, even to his sword, and to his bow, and to his girdle. Okay, so start off with these passages, highlight the unbreakable covenant of a friendship between David and Jonathan. Despite Jonathan being the heir to the throne, he selflessly supported God's chosen future king. The verses offer a perfect lesson on selfless loyalty, godly covenant, and trusting God's plan above human jealousy. Any remarks? Okay, and also
Before Derek continues, are there any comments from the first four verses? Any comments? What Derek is pointing out, and of course, he's nervous, but that's all right. We'll get through this. I have tried to encourage him, not just the past 2 or 3 days, but for a long time. He'll get through this. What we need to realize is that this is, as Derek pointed out, an unbreakable friendship between David and Jonathan. Jonathan gave up a lot because Jonathan was actually supposed to be in line for the next king. But what Saul didn't realize is that Samuel had anointed David some years before, but he just could not ascend the throne. And of course, David spent his time running from Saul. So that's what we see here. And again, as I always say, we have to go back and read the previous chapter, because all of this comes on the heels after David has defeated Goliath in chapter 17. And 2 things take place there. Saul's jealousy increases, and then the friendship between Jonathan and David will also increase. So they have a close friendship. Now, understand there's nothing sexual about this. So don't read what's not in the Bible. Please understand that, because men can have male friends. Women can have female friends. So there's nothing sexual about this. I don't care what they say. And my point is, the only exercise they get is moving their lips. So we need to keep that in mind. Anybody else want to comment? Because you got folks all over planet Earth who would jump on one verse and talk about homosexuality. There is nothing mentioned here about homosexuality. And if you go back and read the scriptures, God forbade homosexuality. That is not his framework. So please understand that.
Okay. Also, I have here that Jonathan models selfless love and loyalty by handing over his royal attire. He was spiritually acknowledging David as a future king and surrounding his own claim to the throne out of love and to God.
That's important. You understand what Derek just said? Derek, repeat that. Understand what he just said. Jonathan gave up a lot. He did. But he was considering his friend David, because Jonathan's father was out to kill David. He was jealous of David. He was out to get him. But Jonathan went against his father. Now think about that for a moment now. This is Father's Day. He went against his father to protect his friend. Derek, read that part again. Speak up just a little bit now.
Jonathan models selfless love and loyalty. By handing over his royal attire, he was spiritually acknowledging David as the future king and surrendering his own claim to the throne out of love and obedience to God.
Well, Jonathan gave David. Jonathan gave David his armor, his sword, his bow, and his belt. And that was the significance. Jonathan, all of those things that he had was protection. A sword, a belt, a robe. The robe signified royalty. The belt signified belt of truth, is my unsanctified mind. And armor, which protected him. So Jonathan gave up all of his protection for his friend David. And how many of us would give up all of our protection for our friends? Not our family. It doesn't say anything about family. It says friends. You know, I have a very good friend in Ohio. If I would call them right now and say, I need $100, they'd send it to me. And we've been friends for a long time, since high school. And it's a friendship. I give to them, they give to me. It's not, and a lot of times it's not money. It's just somebody to listen to you.
Exactly. They're what I call 2 a.m. friends.
Right.
They can call you 2 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly.
Call you 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 a.m. friends.
And they know something that's hurting you, even though you haven't shared it with them.
Yeah. And I often say a friend is a person who knows all about you, pretty much, and still likes you. Now, think about that for a moment. A friend is a person who knows everything about you.
And they're not going to come back at you and say, don't you remember you did this?
We're not going to use it for blackmail. We're not going to blackmail you.
Right.
No, we're not going to do that.
Right.
I'm a firm believer that there are some things we need to leave at the foot of the cross. Don't tell everything, because all of us, we were not born saved, and we were all wild and foolish in our own right now, in our own right. We've all done things that we were ashamed of. And so the thing about it, if we start airing somebody else's dirty laundry, somebody can air ours too. Mm-hmm. So I believe you leave some things at the foot of the cross, never to rise again.
I'd like to add something else. I wrote down a couple of notes last night. And this is it said, because of the love, they made a solemn covenant. This elevated their friendship from a casual relationship to a long life, sacred promise of mutual protection and loyalty. So I read that and I was like, okay, so it's going to be a lasting friendship between both of them, even though what happens to one another. That's what I was thinking in my head the whole time. And that's a big sacrifice for someone to make on their own. But if that was me in their shoes, I probably would do the same thing as well. But then again, it is what it is.
Yeah, I like what you said. And one thing to appreciate our Sunday school lessons, you need to see yourselves in the lesson. Which character do you identify with? And then you can make it more personal. And that's what Derek just did. It was a big sacrifice. So Derek said, I could probably ride with this too. So which character do you identify with? That's where we need to look at it, to appreciate these lessons fuller. Because if we don't spend some time in these lessons, if we're not sincere, we're really wasting our time. We don't really need to have Sunday school if we're not doing it right, because we should see growth from Sunday to Sunday. You should be stronger or deeper in the Lord today than you were 6 months ago, than you were a year ago. If there is no growth, there is something wrong. And so that is our purpose. You know, when I'm up here, I try to make sure that we unpack these verses. We have time. We say 30 minutes, but sometimes I may go 35 or 40 minutes. We're going to sit around here and chew the fat anyway, so we have time.
Okay, I have a question. What is something you treasure that would be willing to give up to help a friend?
Repeat that now. I want somebody to answer.
What is something you treasure that you would willing to give up to help a friend?
I'll go. My home. If my home, our home, I should say, is open to anybody. If you need a house, you need a place to stay, come on over. You know, that's just the way I was raised. I can remember times when some of my friends would come to my parents' house and they'd say, oh, can we have this? Can we have that? Oh, there's cake on the table, or there's cookies in the cupboard. Dad would say, okay, go for it. You know, you have to share what you have, not to receive what you have. Did that make sense? If you share something that you have, you don't expect to get that back. It's a love that you have in your heart for that other person. You know, I would gladly let someone come into my house. I mean, as long as you're not a bank robber. I probably would let a bank robber in my house. No, I wouldn't. But you know what I'm saying? It's not, your home is your home. And I'll say that Donnell's family, his dad is exactly like my dad. Would give you the shirt off his back and tell you, do you need another one? That's just the way that they are. And that's where I learned that from. It was from my family and Donnell's family.
Yeah, so I would say my time and my convenience, because those are two things that I value. And so then if, you know, whenever we say that, say if there's anything that I can do, that requires, you know, a sacrifice. And so, you know, something that you're willing to give up, you know, for a friend.
For me, it would be, trying to see how I can put this, like a vehicle, because there were times where a friend would help me out where if I couldn't get nowhere, I would go ask that friend, would he be willing to, you know, take me here, take me there, under certain circumstances that I couldn't make it or whatever, and I always go to this friend for anything, like he always told me. If you ever need me, you can call me, you can come see me, do whatever it is you need, I will help you the best way possible that I can. So that's how I took that question right there. Any others? Okay, verse, let's see, 20, 16 and 17. So Jonathan made a covenant with the Lord house of David, saying, let the Lord even require it at the hand of David's enemies. 17, and Jonathan caused David to swear again, because he loved him, and for he loved him as he loved his own soul. From 16, I use the phrase meaning, may the Lord call David's enemies to account. Jonathan recognizes that David is in mortal danger and puts himself on the line, asking God to hold anyone accountable for who tries to break his protect his pact and harm of David. In 17, I put down that Jonathan's commitment isn't merely a clinical, political treaty, but is rooted in a profound emotional bond. He loved David as he loved his own soul. Any comments?
Again,
Repeat that last statement. That the Bible said that he loved David more than he loved his own.
He loved David as he loved his own soul.
Let's simmer there for a little bit. Because, when I think about this relationship, and I think that one thing that Deacon Newkirk brought up that I think that is very important as we're thinking about, a month that we talk about the role of men, Father's Day or whatever. One thing, and especially, I don't know other communities, I just know the community that I live in, right, or that I'm a part of. And, as black males, we don't know how, or we struggle with true and genuine friendships. We do. Because, if you are close or too close to a particular individual, then what does it say? As you started off the lesson, there's something funny going on, right? Mm-hmm. And so then it's difficult for two guys, right, to have a meaningful friendship without that stigma. Women can do it all the time, right? And I'm not saying that we're gonna go around and call each other, women. That's my girlfriend. I'm not saying that we're gonna go around and call ourselves, all that kind of stuff. But we as men do not know how to have true and genuine friendships. And I think that part that you mentioned about, that kinship, that relationship between those two, many times within our, and like I said, I'm going to use the community that I know, right? I think it exists everywhere, but I just use what I know. Within our black male communities, that's one of the things that is really killing us, because we don't know how to have friendships. We don't know how to have relationships, trusting relationships with each other, to the point that we can even, share, or we can even, confide or whatever within each other. And I think that's one of those things that is becoming detrimental to our community as we're moving forward. So I just wanted to point that out with that last statement that you said.
But we have to look at Jonathan and David as a relationship through God. Yes. And Saul wouldn't let David go back to his father. Mm-hmm. So he was lost, because Saul didn't like David.
And you see a lot of that stuff even today.
It's jealousy.
Right. You see a lot of that stuff even today, right? Take advantage of it. Yes. And so, I mean, it's just interesting, because some of the stuff that we see, it's just as old as the Bible. This is current. This is 61 years. Yeah.
Any more comments or concerns?
and also in addition to the remarks we heard, in these two verses, 16 and 17, the covenant, don't take that word lightly. Don't take it lightly. When you make a covenant, that's a binding agreement. It said, I made a covenant, and I won't, what's that? I made a vow to the Lord, and I won't take it back. So that's the covenant, and they made this covenant, and according to 16, between the Lord, and then later, loved him as his own soul, as we see here, and the pastor explained that. But that covenant is very important because David, of course, was on the run, as we pointed out earlier. And Jonathan and David had that friendship, that bond, if you will. It was unbreakable.
In our last Bible study, it was about Ruth and Naomi. And look what come out through that. Even David came out through that.
Okay, our second outline is standing firm in adversity. 1 Samuel 20, verses 32 through 34 and 42. 32, and Jonathan answered Saul his father and said unto him, wherefore shall he be slain? What hath he done? 33, and Saul cast a javelin at him to smite him, whereby Jonathan knew that it was determined of his father to slay David. 34, so Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger and did eat no meat for the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David because his father had done him shame. Okay. 32, I got King Saul's uncontrollable jealousy drives him to try and murder his own son, Jonathan. When Jonathan defends his best friend David, Saul's blind rage proves to Jonathan that David's life is in mortal danger.
I'm sorry. And you see, Jonathan raises the question, talking to his daddy. Look at verse 32. Said, why do you want to put him to death? In other words, why do you want to kill David? Dad, tell me, what has he done? What has he done? If you know anything about Saul, Saul was crazy. Crazy. He was unhinged. That's the best way I can explain it. Saul had a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality. That's why I say the Bible is just as current as the 6 o'clock news. When you have folks who can change on a dime, but yet we're on our way to heaven anyhow. I worry about that anyhow crowd. We got to stay firm. And so he says here, why you want to kill him? What did he do? And Saul got so mad. Look at verse 33. He tried to kill his own son. Now that's mad. Oogie, when you try to kill your own son, it's pitiful. He was out of control. He was unhinged, all because of jealousy. Jealousy. That's what it was. And so look at this. Jonathan had to move fast. 33, Saul cast a javelin through. He threw a spear. Now, Kenny, last time I checked, a spear can do some damage. It's hard. Thank you, man. See, weight and speed. It's hard to dodge that. Threw a spear at him. Jonathan knew right then. Look at the right-hand side. It was the decision of his father to do what? To put David to death. Jonathan knew. When a dad, and again, this is Father's Day, when a dad wants to kill his own son, has nothing to do with it. He's still a man. And that's his child.
That shows you how bad he wanted David. He wanted David if he had taken his son with him.
We still have Sauls in 26? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. You don't have to leave little DC either. We have Sauls in 26.
I also wrote down that Jonathan held out hope that his father's anger was in a temporary phase. This assassination attempt makes it undeniable that Saul is completely consumed by a murderous hatred for David.
Very good. He's unhinged. He's crazy. He's ready for the funny farms.
I like that. Word consumed.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that says a lot there.
It says a lot. As Mama said, that's a mouthful.
Take it over.
Consume. Take it over and complete. Consume.
34. So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger, and did eat no meat for the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David, because his father had done him shame. I don't remember Mr. Fasting. That's what I was thinking when I read that. 'Cause he was fasting the whole time. The whole situation was going on with that, and he didn't want to eat for days or months or whatever, how long it took him. And I think that really got to him that bad, from where he didn't want to eat at all for him to do that.
You know, when you trust somebody with your soul, you know, that's your ticket to heaven. Now, how tight you got to be with somebody to trust them with your soul? That's,
Oh, I like that.
that's what,
I like that. Yeah, your ticket to heaven.
yeah.
And then
That's
when
what Jonathan trusted David.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. And look at the last part of 34. Look on the right-hand side. I like the way the New Revised says it. Jonathan sprang up from the table in fierce anger and ate no food on the second day. Now, you all know I told you before I love to eat. And I don't miss many meals, Oogie. Ate no food on the second day of the month, for he was what? Grieved for David, because his father had disgraced him. And I like the way Kenny said it. When you trust somebody with your own soul, this is your ticket. Your ticket. And when that person betrays you or hurts you,
And it didn't say Jonathan picked up the javelin and threw it back at him.
That's right.
The Bible says, "Be ye angry."
but sin not. But sin not. We love to quote that first part of Ephesians 4:26. Be ye angry. We see those three words. Oogie, we close the Bible. Be ye angry. Get my switchblade and cut him from ear to ear. Be ye angry. And then you go back. After all that blood has been spilled, the scripture says, but sin not. You say, uh-oh. Look at all that blood I have spilled. In other words, we read just enough to be dangerous. We read just enough to be dangerous.
Verse 42, and Jonathan said to David, go in peace, for as much as we sworn both of us in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord be between me and thee, and between my seed and thy seed forever. And he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city.
There's a lot in that verse. That's a mouthful.
I wrote down that two friends shared a heartbreaking, tearful farewell. Jonathan sends David into exile to save his life, and they reaffirm their sacred covenant of loyalty, commitment, their friendship to God.
Okay, it says that Jonathan went to David and said, go in peace. And he got up, and Jonathan went into the city. So what kind of welcome did King Saul give to Jonathan when he came back to the city? Exactly. And I wonder why it's silent. Did King Saul just go, look, you left once, you left twice, you left 3 times. You ain't coming back here to cause problems. Or was it just better? In my head, I'm going to say, did he come back as the prodigal son? Or did he just come back and continue on his quest? And it also says that we have friends that believe in us, believe in our assignment, and that they're there for us no matter what. Your friends are your friends. And if you disappoint them, they're still your friends. You know, a friend is a friend.
I was seeing between Steve. He was going forward. He was telling David, when the chips are down, you take care of my descendant, and I'll take care of yours.
Exactly. Yes, that's a good point from both of you. If you look on the right side, he says, the Lord shall be between me and you. All right, so he's asking God to stand in the gap. How many times have we asked the Lord to stand in the gap? Are you with me now? So that's the first thing he says. Now we got to pick this bone clean. You all don't know how much time I spent on my lesson because I'm real about this thing. We don't need to shuck and jive. We need to be real. And so he says, between me and you, asking God to stand in the gap. That's part one. But then as Jesse said in part two, look at it. And between, come on, my descendants and your descendants. Jonathan knew that one day he was going to close his eyes in death. He knew that. He was going to close his eyes in death. And so Jonathan is getting his business in order right now. It goes back to that covenant, a binding agreement. Said, now, we are making this agreement between us, and we want to keep this agreement, keep this covenant.
That covenant, that part about descendants and forever, that's important because that comes into play later on.
Because if you remember, Jonathan had a lame son, Mephibosheth. We talked about him 3 or 4 years ago in Bible study. Good discussion on the telephone line. Donnie chimed in several times. I got a good memory. And we talked, Mephibosheth was lame. And you go back and read the story. You see, Saul wanted, the conquering king wanted the Gibeonites, I believe it was. They wanted to destroy Saul completely. So they said, send me the descendants. And so David released most of the children, but he did not release Mephibosheth because David had made an agreement with Jonathan. Mephibosheth was lame. I believe it was a horse accident, but don't quote me on that. But he was lame. So David kept his word. And that's what Kenny is talking about. That bond, that legacy, if you will. We're making that agreement.
I also like in the footnotes, it says some friends truly grow to become closer than family. When a child gets in trouble in a different state from where their parents live, friends can stand in the gap on behalf of the parent so that child is not alone and has an advocate because of the parental friendship.
Exactly.
And it doesn't matter.
Again, it goes back to what I call 2 a.m. friends. I think some of us may have some 2 a.m. friends. What I mean by that, they can call you. And you don't have a whole lot of questions either. What's up? What do you need? You know, I have a friend. We're really close. I tell folks he's my brother by a different mother. And I have told him things that I haven't told my brothers. And I have 4 brothers. And the same with him. He'll tell me, if I say, Jimmy, I tell you so-and-so, but I'm not telling. And he'll call a brother's name. I call them 2 a.m. friends.
That's, you know, all of you know that I'm from Ohio, and if there's somebody in Ohio that needs something, and I can call a friend and say, can you go and check on them, or can you at least do something and then let me know? Because that friend sometimes is not going to tell you, or that person that's in trouble is not going to tell you. There's been a lot of instances lately that it seems like my friends are being tormented. And it's just like, really? Okay. And then I just call someone and say, look, just go and check on them. You know, just take something to them, or just take them for a car ride or something. You know, do something for them because I've asked you to. And they're like, oh, okay, no problem.
That's just like, piggyback up on what you just said. It's just like when I was in high school, and Mr. Jimmy was my English teacher in 10th grade and 12th grade. He always pushed us to get better at what we do, learn more, get better at what you do. Everything else go on top of that. But that's always stuck with me ever since then. And that's why I always try to think about what he always told me when I was in high school, and try to learn from your mistakes, and at the same time that, try to do more as your life goes on and everything like that. I always take it for granted, but then I realized that I can't be doing that anymore. So.
And see, the circle has been not completed, but has continued.
Yeah. I mean, I give him, to be honest with you, I give him a lot of praise because I'm not going to say how can I put it? He stuck with us for so many years. He haven't seen us ever since we graduated high school. And, you know, I always wondered what happened to him, but when I found out he was here, and I was dating Kendra or whatever, so then that's how I ran back into him and everything. So, yeah, it's been kind of right since then. Yeah. Third item, honor your friend's legacy. 2 Samuel, first chapter, 26 and 27, 21 and verse 7. 26. I am distressed for thee, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant hast thou been unto me. Thy love to me was wonderful, passing the love of women. 27. How are they mighty fallen, and the weapons of war perished. In 26, I put down David was mourning the deaths of King Saul and his closest friend Jonathan, who died in a battle against the Philistines. And I got that David honors Jonathan's love as passing or surpassing the love of women. He is not implying a romantic or sexual relationship. Instead, he is expressing that Jonathan's sacrifice devotion was extraordinary. Any comments?
Again, as we said at the outset, don't read into sexual immorality in this. Please don't rewrite God's word. No sexual immorality. If you read it closely, look on the right-hand side. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Greatly beloved were you to me. Your love to me was wonderful, passing the love of women. It does not mean they're gay. The folks would jump on this and look at one part, and that's why we get in trouble. Read the entire scripture and read what other scriptures say. We got to do that. And then 27.
Was David's brother-in-law. That's when it started out, because Saul gave his daughter to Jonathan and David.
You're absolutely right. Michal. It's pronounced different ways. Michal. You're absolutely right.
He gave his daughter to David
Yeah.
after the battle, won from Goliath.
That's where all this, I think before you got here, I made the comment. This is where everything is stemming from in chapter 17. David has just defeated the giant Goliath. Just defeated him.
I don't think Saul was so much upset about David defeating Goliath. I think he loved that. He rejoiced in David defeating Goliath. But the attention that David got after defeating Goliath,
That's right. That's it. That's
the
it.
attention he got.
That's it.
That's just
Yeah.
what tore Saul all to
Right.
pieces.
So, what is it? I can't even think of the word. It filtered down. One thing led to another. 27, Derek.
How are the mighty fallen and the weapons of war perished? Any comments?
At this time, they had a famine in the land after the war. And that's why number 7 is going to come up, because the famine in the land, David took care of Saul's son.
And also, when it says here, how the mighty have fallen and weapons of war perished, Saul and Jonathan, that's a metaphor for their deaths. For their deaths, the mighty have fallen. And as Derek pointed out when he read those 2 verses, in spite of Saul trying to take David's life, David still mourned Saul's death. Now, he still mourned his death. And David had at least 2 opportunities to kill Saul, but he refused. I need to keep that in mind now. He had at least 2 chances to take him out, but he refused.
Verse 7.
This is from chapter 21. If you really want to know the story, again, you need it. It's in 1st and 2nd Samuel. Beautiful books. Start in chapter 17. You get the background and just read on.
Verse 7. But the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, son of Saul, because of the Lord's oath that was between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. I wrote down, David discovers it is a consequence of King Saul's previous breaking a historic oath made to the Jebusites. To make amends, the Jebusites demand the execution of 7 of Saul's descendants. Jonathan protected David from Saul's murderous plot, and in return, David swore to always protect Jonathan's family. Even though David is now the king and could legally wipe out the bloodline of his former rival Saul, he keeps his faithful promise to Jonathan by protecting the Mephibosheth.
We talked about this earlier. Kenny touched upon it, and I just piggyback on what he said. But here it is right here. The king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Saul's son Jonathan. That was Saul's grandson, because of the oath of the Lord that was between them, between David and Jonathan, son of Saul. So he spared him because the king wanted to wipe out everybody in Saul's family. But because of that oath, that binding agreement, I made a vow. I'm going to keep my vow. Even though Jonathan is resting, he's dead, but David is still going to honor his legacy. All right.
In conclusion, I have the worth of a true friend is beyond measure. Though friendship may be with a simple connection, it is strengthened in power over time. Though throughout through trials and initial investment. When selfishness, loyalty, commitment, and genuine love forms a foundation, a covenant friendship becomes unshakable. Such relationships not only endure life's storms, but also emerge stronger, deeper, and more effective of God's heart for his people. The Holy Bible and Google search.